On today's show, we have filmmaker Joshua Martin, who is here to discuss his new contest that just ended about rig culture. And we're also talking a little bit about the tests that I've done on the YouTube channel, comparing the Red Komodo to the Pocket 4K and doing a little bit of camera talk. You know how these podcasts go. But anyways, my name's Jeff Fagan. You're watching the Reach Films podcast, and let's get this thing going. There we go. How you doing, Josh?
Good.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a while.
Oh, I know. It's crazy thing. So the last one we did was, it was like what, like 7-8 weeks ago? So like 2 months ago?
Yeah, about 2 months ago. Yeah.
Okay. Solid time. So what's been going on in your neck of the woods?
Man, a lot actually. These last, really. So I've been shooting a doc and filming a short film for the past 7 weeks. And then right now I'm just kind of in post-production right now with the doc and the short film, and nearing the end. We're hoping October is going to be the deadline for at least one of them.
Okay.
So my hands have been tied up in that, for a bit. Recently just got hired for the Joe Biden campaign to shoot a couple of things for them. Totally forgot to mention that to you earlier, but yeah, we've been kind of going back and forth with their campaign manager and getting schedules, getting casting down. So that's gonna be it's gonna be a huge project that I'm really looking forward to shoot. But other than that, just kind of just taking it day by day.
Recovering in the new world of filmmaking under COVID-19, right?
Yeah, it's totally different, man. But people are making it work. We're making it work, and it's
absolutely. Mm-hmm. Wear your mask, get your hand sanitizer ready, and wash your hands a lot.
Stay 6 feet away,
and stay 6 feet away. And that's hard. That's hard. Even when you have smaller sets, it's still hard a lot when you're moving cameras around and doing lighting. It's been interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, we got Stogie in the chat saying what's up. Hey, Stogie. Giving us that little live long and prosper sign. So anyway, so you had this contest that was going on the Rig Culture channel. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because I know it just ended on Sunday, and it's a really interesting premise.
Yeah, so my partner and I, business partner and I, we wanted to do something celebrating the fact that, it sounds kind of weird saying this, but celebrating the fact that my account had reached just over 10,000 followers. Right now, I know, right? I mean, it's a small thing. It's a small thing in the world of what matters, but that gave us the leverage to actually work with different brands to bring a contest to life, to one, share meaningful stories, and two, allow us to give back to our filmmaking community. So that was a really great process. Him and I were the only ones who really handled it, scheduling and getting in contact with different brands like Swit, Angel Bird, Nomad, like brands like that. And it's been a great partnership with them. They were very willing to kind of jump on and be part of this. So yeah, like you said, it just ended, and the topic and the theme that we kind of went with was connection, due to the times that we're in, to see how what stories we can kind of grab from that. And there was a really particular story that stood out to me, and I won't say just yet because we're announcing the winners on this Sunday in our channel, so make sure to hop over to that. But
and we'll have a link in the description below.
Perfect.
So everyone can go.
Yeah, and so it was really great to see that happen. We had, I think, a total of 10 submissions. Was just, it's our first win. I'm totally stoked that.
And people have to do work. It's not like you just sign up and you're like, exactly. I'm entered.
Exactly, and we asked for a pretty, I think, tall toll. We were asking for a 2.5 minute film minimum at least, and gave about a month for people to do. So that was a very, learning from that, how we can implement a better, turnaround time and get more people involved. But this was a really great start in our end, I think.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
I forgot our main partner was Epidemic Sound. They were the main ones who actually helped put this on. Yeah, that's I almost forgot that, man. I was about to
but you got them.
Yeah. They've been great. They've been awesome to help us do that. do that. So
okay, very cool. Well, I can't wait to tune in on Sunday and see who the winner is and watch their video, and that's gonna be really cool. I can't wait to see what everyone came up with.
Yeah, same. I can't wait to share it.
So I just noticed you're wearing the Rig Culture shirt too. There you go, representing.
This is going to
You
be
also
coming
got
very
that.
soon. So
Oh, you're gonna do merch.
yeah, we started back a while ago, but there's really no like incentive to why you want to purchase it. But we're going to start implementing how this can be useful, or just something you want to just kind of brag about, building this community. That's what we really want to build.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also you can do like little rules and stuff on the back or the front, and like a checklist, like like a production checklist. You're like, hey, did you white balance? Did you black balance?
That's actually that's a great idea.
Yeah, no, you did. I would totally do it.
Yeah.
So awesome, man. Well, so let's do the next apparel that you're wearing.
Sure.
You got that ZCam hat on right now. So how's the ZCam journey been? Last time we checked in, you pretty much just got the camera in.
Yep.
So I know you didn't really want to speak much to it because it was fresh.
It was fresh.
So what's your take? What's your take on it now?
For sure. So I've had the ZCam for 3 months, but the months don't tell it. I've spent I'm sure well over 100 hours with this camera, from testing it to shooting it to almost being in the menus like almost every day, and being with the files every day. And and I try to shoot on every little thing I can. And I like doing that because you really get to know the camera very quickly. And know its downfalls, where the bugs are, where it shines. So overall, I think it's a great camera for narrative work, especially for the value that it is. And so the ZCam that I have the E2S6. So that's a Super 35 6K sensor.
And what's that priced at?
That's just body only. I think that's about $2,500. And cool. If you want to compare that to like the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, for me choosing this camera over the Blackmagic, couple things, it's more robust. So it's form factor of it is a metal body, square, so that brain idea like Red has, so you can build it up as big as you need to or as small as you need to with the accessories. Now the size of it is a little a bit too small in my opinion, but you get past, you make it work. The interchangeable mounts was a huge thing for me because I use PL lenses, I use Micro Four Thirds lenses still, and I use EF lenses, and being able to change out those mounts with just each mount was only $100. So in terms of like comparing it to like a metal bones, metal bones is starting at like $400 to $700, right?
And speaking of Metabones, I think they have a focal reducer mount that they just came out with for the E2, for the S6 and I forget what the Micro Four Thirds one is, but it works on both of them, I think.
The M4 is the newer Micro Four Thirds one.
And I was like, good on you guys. Good on you guys, even making a focal reducer. So I'm interested to see how the optics in that are.
For the cameras you're talking about?
For the one made by ZCam. No,
it's called
because we know the Metabones.
Yeah, it's called the Turbo Boost, and I think CVP made a video about it and showing the two compared. So it's very interesting for sure. Because I think since it's a 0.71, it will bring the S6 to a full frame equivalent. I'm not too keen on using speed boosters anymore from my previous use case with it, just because I'm more of a lens purist. I want to see what that lens without any glass in between looks on that sensor. So and speed boosters, we've had that conversation before. It changes quite a bit.
It's nice to have, but you don't want to have to depend on it. And I think where we're both coming from is we are both, and I'm still am a Pocket 4K user, where we're kind of dependent as Pocket 4K users on the speed booster if you're using EF glass. And I don't want to be dependent on a focal reducer. I want to be able to choose it if I want that full frame look or whatever, or if I want that aesthetic. But and again, that's why you're with the Super 35 sensor on the S6, and that's why I'm on the Komodo. I can get exactly what I'm trying to get from the optics of the lens. So I'm with you.
I hear you. So, and a couple other things with the ZCam. I'm really enjoying the 422 ProRes out of it. right now, RAW is
Very
really
cool.
not an option. For me personally, you can do it. There's ProRes RAW and there's Z RAW, but both of the workflows are just annoying. I don't enjoy the
Yeah, that's what I've
workflows right
heard.
now to get 12-bit out of it. So waiting a little bit on that. Hopefully, they've been trying to push this new software called Assimilate. I think it was called Assimilate for the ProRes RAW and the Z RAW footage. But I'm don't want to jump on another thing. I'm already bouncing between 3 programs already. But
yeah, I know.
Yeah. So other than that, I think if you're looking for I say a budget narrative cine camera, the ZCam is a very enticing camera to use. The files are pretty easy to work with. They are pretty big, especially if you're because I shoot most of my stuff in open gate. I just love the flexibility of open gate, and I just like that aspect ratio for my personal projects. And so I shot the documentary. All of the interviews were in open gate, so the 3:2 format. I like.
Now,
that
you're not shooting anamorphic in open gate? You're just shooting at open gate, right?
No, yeah, just shooting open gate. There's
and so you're doing that more for shot selection afterwards, so you can just frame it exactly how you want.
Yeah, if I needed to, yeah. But for that
gotcha.
documentary, for the interviews, we left it at 3:2. Like that was a decision to leave at 3:2.
Okay.
Yeah. So it made a more
Very
intimate, intimate engagement with the viewer because the interviewees are looking directly at the camera. So we wanted that that tension, that feeling. But yeah, if you wanted to shoot anamorphic for the ZCam is really great. It's one of those multi-cropping sensors. So if they have a 4:3 mode, they have a 6:5 mode. So I tested it with the PL anamorphics that I have. There are 133s. I've used it with the Vazen 1.8 anamorphic, the 40 mil. I've done tests on that on Red Komodo's channel. So it's great to have that. Like the sensor is very flexible. That's what makes this very interesting to have because it gives you so many options, right? So you go from 6K, full open gate, all the way down to Super 16 crop mode, and it's all down sampling. So every time you crop in, you're still down sampling from that 6K. So the quality still retains, which is really, really great to see.
Very cool. Well, it's interesting because it gives you a lot of options and seemingly a lot more options than most other camera systems. I don't know any camera that will give you that many options and that many different aspects. Like they may give you an open gate, but it's pretty much like if it's a 6K camera and you're trying to do 3:2, it may be like a 5.7K open gate or whatever. They're not going to give you like Super 16. So that's really cool.
You can go. You can go straight up there. Yeah. So, because I know the Pocket 4K kind of struggles, and I don't know if you noticed it, but like when you do the other croppings options on that micro four thirds sensor, it decreases the quality quite a bit, doesn't it? The window. So,
are you saying you're the windowed options?
Yeah.
Yes, but I think it decreases the quality in the same way the Red does, where it's like the ISO values and everything change as you crop in. And you have to be mindful of that. So it's like if you're shooting at 800 and you're cropping into like, 2.7K or whatever that crop is, well, you probably shouldn't be at 800. You should probably be at like, 320 or something like that, to get, equivalent grain patterns. And, it's something that I don't know if a lot of people remember to do that. As far as when I'm using the crop mode of like the CinemaScope crop, that I haven't noticed a quality loss, but you're not really cropping in on the sensor at that point. You're really just, cropping out the top and the bottom. So I guess why would there be? But I mean, I've really liked the 2.7K or the 2.5K. I forget the exact resolution on the Pocket 4K shooting 120 frames. I guess you could say it's slower. I guess you could say it, or not slower. I guess you could say like it just isn't as sharp.
As it's
the
a little
4K files.
It is softer. It's like it's kind of I won't say mushy, but that sounds really bad.
It's not bad. Like it's definitely sharper than 1080p, and that's why I choose shooting at that higher resolution, because it's like it's a little better. And the fact that they actually gave us that way after the release, and it wasn't like a promised thing, that was really cool. Because I did not really like shooting 1080 and 120 just because I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it was really only usable for web content. It wasn't usable for anything past that.
Agreed.
So let's get to the meat and potatoes of today. So did you get a chance to look at some of the Red footage I sent you, and the Blackmagic footage?
Your test with different frame cropping with the Komodo, and as well as I had just dropped some of the other clips in the B-roll stuff and the red stuff that you sent for. So, and watched your
cool. So for
film.
listeners and viewers, really quick, just a recap of what we're talking about. I did these videos on the channel, and they were like fun little videos. They weren't meant to be like scientific comparisons, but it was using the Red Komodo and the Pocket 6K in, you know, a lit environment, a somewhat narrative environment, and just seeing how they looked against each other. It wasn't supposed to be the most scientific test, but it was just kind of, you know, they both had Sigma 18 to 35s on them. They are both in the same lighting conditions. We had them at the same ISOs. So I did like one major test where we just shot a few different, I will call them angles because they weren't really scenes, but I did a few different angles with a few different models. And then we did an ISO test. And that was really it for the Blackmagic. And so we'll go there. So that was the camera test, specific test that I did. So when you popped in the red footage, you obviously got to see the RAWs, which is what a lot of people wanted, which, just to let everybody know, it's hard to send out RAW files with those data sizes. So that's why I could not add them into the post. I mean, I think what I sent you wasn't that much, and I think it was still like 50 gigs or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty massive still. So I've shot red. I just never edited red files. And so I had to download some of the plugins for Final Cut Pro, as well as I think it works natively with DaVinci.
Yeah, it does.
Opted in it, yeah. So one, I would say the red footage is very flexible in the sense of the options that they give you for the raw. But what I did notice was the skin tones. And when I was comparing it to, I guess I should have had examples, but I don't have examples right now. But yeah, comparing the six. Okay, what?
No. It was that good old StreamYard lag. You know,
when comparing this, when I was trying to get the skin tones due to this lighting scenario that you have. Sorry, I have my window open. The lighting scenario that you have on this on the set. It was a little tough for me to get. And like I said, I'm not a professional colorist. There is a process I like to work with B-roll files, and I used that process on it. And the skin tones were just a bit still dull. I felt like I had to push a little bit more to get any life. And that's what I'm trying to achieve, getting life in them due to that scenario. It was a little bit easier with the red to get there. Now, and I noticed this in your test too, the blues were very apparent in
different.
This.
And they were very different. And
they shifted.
And now here's something. Oh, sorry. You continue. I'll tell my part after while you every time.
The shift of blues, you had to qualify them to match them. But if you just did it just purely one process over the other, you would see that the Blackmagic's more cyan rather than a blue purple type color. Then again, process would be, you would actually do like a transform color space to get them both on the same like profile, and then work from there and then qualify the areas that need to kind of match. That's how you would properly do it, but I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And I made that mistake of not doing that. You know, I didn't put them both in the same color space when I compared them. But again, it wasn't supposed to be a scientific test. It was just kind of supposed to be, you know, I have this LUT that works and is made for this camera. So let me use that just so we can at least see, since I'm not a colorist, how it looks. And, you know, coming from Blackmagic, one of the things I noticed was it was easier to color grade the red footage just off the bat without using LUTs, which is a plus. It may not, you know, be the reason why you'd want to spend that much money on that camera compared to other ones. But for me, that was a bonus. The fact that I had to take up my watch, it keeps ringing. It was a bonus that I could just grade it so much easier. And yes, I did notice the blue shift. It's hard for me to understand which camera is kind of not right, because the red almost seemed true to how it was on set. And if you look at the behind the scenes photo that I used for the part 2 test, that was taken with a Sony A7S, maybe A7S2. And the blues on that, I would say, were closer to the red than they were on the Blackmagic. So that was something I noticed. But at the same time, my set here is an example. So you see behind me that blue right there. That blue is blue. But on my Komodo, that blue red that's right here that I'm pointing to, that is a little bit more purple than blue when I use the Komodo in here. So I do notice that there is a shift, but it may depend on what the lighting source is.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't using this lighting source for the blues. I was using RGB, like proper, because these are made for like
for film
music studios and like live music events and whatnot. So they aren't really like camera friendly. So that could explain the color shift on these. But I don't know.
Have you done a test where you had just daylight situation where you can see what the sensor is picking up if it's more shifted to?
So that's the next test I do want to do. So the next test I want to do is I want to take a Pocket 4K. Just because I have it and the 6K and do some outdoor tests with the camera side by side. It's just been crazy up until now between work, finishing some freelance projects and doing the YouTube. Now I get why some of these YouTubers get like fatigue. They're like, I can't do it because it's like it's a lot balancing it. But I do want to do it. There's this YouTuber Brady Bissett who I worked on a documentary with a few years ago. And we were talking about doing one in the next few weeks whenever he gets back into town, just so I can have some help, because it's hard. It's hard doing those tests accurately without having a little bit of help. But that is the plan. I do want to do it with the 4K. Want to do it with the 6K. I want to do it with the ZCam. There's a buddy of mine who has a ZCam down here. So I want to bring him in and have him add him to the fold. And we all have Sigmas, so that makes it easy. We don't have to go out and rent any glass. So I will. I do want to test it in outdoor lighting to see it. My thought process with doing this whole test on those sound stages was most of the stuff I've been seeing from Komodo was all like outdoors, naturally lit. And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that was more studio lit on a set, especially because I knew I was going to be there. I figured it would set apart from everything else that was going on. So that was my thought process on doing it.
No, and that's rightly so. Like you test gear the way you're going to use it, right? There's no when it comes to that aspect. It's funny you said this is an unscientific test. I'm like, no, this is scientific to your needs.
Right? Correct.
So it's this, if you see what you like and dislike between this camera and that camera, then you made your decision to which way to go, because like
100%.
I mean, this is what they do in Hollywood. This is what they do with any DP, any director. They'll go, it's a ton of lens, ton of camera. Was it like in this situation, that situation?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we were doing, because we were testing this camera for the movie we want to shoot with it on. I would say though, the only reason I labeled it with that unscientific label was we didn't use color charts. We didn't use, any kind of charts to where, in my opinion, it would have been scientific for everybody. So that's why the unscientific is basically a disclaimer, because yes, I completely agree with you. It's scientific for my needs and maybe someone else's needs, but definitely not everybody's. And I knew that if I didn't put that out there, that it was unscientific, that it would open the floodgates.
Oh, essentially. It would. You have your comment Nazis on. Well, I don't say Nazis. That's not what I mean, but
no, but we get you. Hey, listen, I think if they can call the soup Nazi in Seinfeld the soup Nazi, because we were actually talking about the actor who plays him the other day. But yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. There's the camera group trolls are not fun sometimes, and I wouldn't say you definitely need to bow down to what they're doing, but occasionally they do have points. And the unscientific thing for me was a point where I'm like, I could see why that would be an issue for some people. But it was cool overall. Like you alluded to, I got what I needed out of it, and using the Komodo. I guess before I go to the end result, we'll talk a little bit about the test film I shot, which is literally why I call it a test film. That was a straight up test film. So that whole thing was, let's do some really quick shots. Let's just roll with it. I had a buddy of mine, Tyler Moses. Sorry, I was blanking on his name. I think you actually met him before. He said he met you a while ago, maybe in Sarasota or something like that. Tyler Moses. I'll show you his Instagram after we're done. But Tyler came out, and he actually owned the Pocket 6K. So again, I want to thank Tyler for coming out and helping with the test. So Tyler also came out and helped on the second day. And the whole goal was, let's just run through a really quick short. We'll run a small bit of audio just so I can test the audio and see how the preamps work, if I even want to mess with them. And let's just run through it. So we did that little test. And actually, I had in my mind how I wanted the narrative to go. And it's funny how the edit works, because it's not how the order of how I filmed everything isn't in the edit, but it was really weird. I was going to put it together and we weren't going to share it. And we were just going to kind of be like, this is what everything looks like with a little bit of lighting. Cause Tyler literally held one of my COB lights with a softbox on it, and we mounted it to a monopod, and he just ran around and he lit everything with the COB light on the monopod. It was battery powered. So we didn't have a cord dangling around, and we were able to just move from setup to setup really quickly. And that's again why I label it a test film, because we were just testing it out, seeing how it looked. And we were happy with where it came out. And John Strekis, who's actually Stogie Returns, he came up with an idea to me. He goes, hey, because I was already going to use some CGI footage that we had set aside for the movie. So he was like, there's some other shots that aren't going to be used, and I think we can put something together. And that's what it ended up becoming. We just put something really, really short together, and it just kind of showed the camera. And it isn't exactly how the movie's going to look by any means, because we're not filming the whole movie with, essentially a portable gaffer or a portable light stand. But it let us film that vignette in a relatively quick period of time to then, let me get home back to Florida and put everything on the computer and knock that thing out in, pretty quick. So overall, it was a very successful test. We decided, we are going to move forward and use this camera. So that was fun to do.
Dope. So I'm looking at one particular shot at 1 minute and 21 seconds when you have the red light directly on him. I know good and well that the 6K would have struggled with that red.
Yes. And that's one of the things we did test, but not for this weekend, by the way. One of the things we tested was back in December, we shot with the 4K and the 6K on the bridge set, and we needed to get some trailer shots. And the trailer shots we needed were all that red alert. So all the shots were like that. And that's something I noticed. Now, it's not a deal breaker on the 6K or the 4K. It's totally fixable, but it does struggle with it. And so you got to work with it in post. So I completely agree with you on that. The red was able to handle it a bit better in that situation. It wasn't breaking down like it did on the Pocket.
Yeah. Side note, do you have a Vimeo account that you upload your tests to?
A Vimeo account? No. I probably will do it at some point. I had a personal beef with Vimeo, man. When I tried to so I sold a movie on Vimeo. I don't mind saying this on air. I sold a movie on Vimeo. It was a water sports movie that I did. And when the movie to sell the movie on Vimeo, I had to upgrade to a business account. Well, the movie was out for, I think, 2 years at one point. And I'm like, you know what? It's not really making any sales anymore. I want to downgrade back to a plus account because I'm not using the business features anymore. Well, they don't let you downgrade. You can upgrade, but you can't downgrade. So the way that they do it is you let your account lapse and they delete everything up till 10 gigs on your channel. So I didn't like that they did that they wouldn't let me downgrade. And just for that reason alone, that was when I started to upload to YouTube. I think that was like 2018. Yeah, I was like, you know what? Yeah, it was. But that's the short of it, you know. I'm sorry. I keep coming over you with the StreamYard lag.
It's the lag. It's the lag. Finish your thought.
No. I was just saying that's why I haven't been using Vimeo. Just because I didn't like that they wouldn't let me downgrade. And I even wrote to them trying to downgrade. And they're just like, that's how it works. You're going to have to let your account lapse. And I'm like, so I basically have to lose everything I have up until 10 gigs to then upgrade to a plus. Nah, I'm cool. I'm see you guys.
Yeah, that's annoying. I was going to say, because the benefit of Vimeo is the codec is a lot better. Like the streaming codec is a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think it shows in 10-bit, right? I think it shows in 10-bit versus the compressed version on YouTube. So like tests like this really show
on Vimeo.
Better on Vimeo, so people can see.
I agree.
Kind of the nitty-gritty. Yeah.
That's why I used Vimeo for years. That's why I refused to go on YouTube, because I was like, the quality is much better on Vimeo. But I don't know. So I had a Vimeo account for like 10 years at that point, and I was just like, I don't like that. I never knew that you did this. But I don't know. But I think maybe at some point, if I do more of these camera tests, I'll go re-up a Vimeo account. They're not that expensive. It's just I was salty. I'll just put it.
No, I feel you, because I had kind of ran into something similar to that, but we just upgraded to the newer account, because they had locked me out of my new account because they wanted everybody to move up. I'm like, but why? Anyway, this is not a rant. We're not going.
No, yeah. It's just kind of just like, come on, work with your filmmakers that are supporting you. But whatever. I'll be back at some point. It's that isn't going to be my last camera comparison. And I completely agree with you. I should put it up on Vimeo too, so that way I can put the nice 4K files and people can download them. And no, I agree. I totally agree. So I'm trying to think what else. So we did those tests. You saw the footage. So what else did you see when you were going through the footage? Because you're one of the few people that I gave the raw file. I gave the raw files to you. I gave them to Drew and Jeff from Craft Show, and I gave them to. I am curious on what they thought too. I don't know. I don't think they've looked at them yet though, because I know they've been busy. And then I gave them to our colorist, and our colorist basically his only comment was the blacks were clipped on the Blackmagic, and I'm like, I know, I clipped them purposely to see how much we could recover, but I know. I get it.
Oh, okay. So that's what you're okay. Because like I'm looking at the shadow.
That was what I was doing. I was trying. So traditionally, and I guess I should have explained this. So when I lit these girls, traditionally, you'd want to do the whole 3-point lights setup, but I did 2-point lighting because I wanted to create a shadow area to see how much could be recovered. Okay. And that's something I should have put in the video. And again, I'm relatively new to this whole YouTube thing. So that's something I gotta get back to, where I gotta do my checklists in all these videos and make sure I hit every single point. And that was a big reason of why in every single shot, there's a huge shadow on one side.
Yeah, shadow, and especially underneath her neck and everything.
It was all about recovery.
Okay, that's what I asked you. What's the idea behind lighting it? Because when you're switching to and I'm looking at your test footage on YouTube now, the up to 3200 ISO versus either camera, that was interesting to see how much. Well, I think the Komodo is still recoverable. Like you have the digital noise there, but like
so that's 100%, and you're right. At 3200, the Komodo is absolutely recoverable. But my whole thing was, how do these cameras stack up with zero noise reduction? Because even the Pocket needs noise reduction at some point. I made sure to say that in the video because I knew there was going to be some people who came in and said, hey, you can go past 3200 or you can go to 3200, just use noise reduction. I'm like, yes, of course you can. But it's straight out of camera. This was just a straight out of camera thing, because the noise at 3200 was so apparent on the red and the raw files compared to the Blackmagic, where I was like, all right, well, without noise reduction, Blackmagic is the clear winner right here. That's just like, I don't even need to go higher, because the next step I go up on the Blackmagic, it's still gonna get grainier. Don't get me wrong, but it's still gonna be beating the red by leaps and bounds, and people know how far they can push the Blackmagic. So I felt like going any further is just going to make the video much longer.
Yeah. True. Cool. Good to know.
And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this stream, because I figured this will kind of go over some of the things that I left out in the video. So when everyone's kind of going back down the channel, they're like, oh, let me get a little bit of more information on it. Well, this is your little bit more information on it.
But
it was fun to do though.
I was gonna say something else, I totally forgot now. No, you go. I was gonna ask, so you're using what lens? The Sigma?
So for this test and for the test all around, I used mostly the Sigma 18-35. And then I used 50 1.2 for the red alert scenes on the bridge.
On the bridge, okay.
on the bridge. So I didn't use a Sigma for those red alert scenes. That was on a gimbal. I was on the Crane 2S on a 50 1.2, and really I just wanted to get tighter shots. I also wanted to test how the 50 worked with the Komodo on a gimbal, because it's a little tight. It's a little tight for that small of a space. But I was like, you know what?
Shot that full sensor, like the full 6K sensor, or
I shot, yeah. So everything in this video, everything was shot full 6K. There was no, I mean, I cropped it to make it not necessarily CinemaScope, but I cropped it down to make it, give it that little cinematic look. But it was all 6K, full sensor, 17 by 9.
17 by 9, okay.
Yeah. So I made sure, and then there was only one shot in the entire vignette that, even though it was shot in 6K, I cropped in a little bit to probably where it would be equivalent to 5K. And it was the third red alert shot, where he's a little, it looks, you can tell it's so let me rephrase. I used 3 lenses. In that shot, I used a Tokina 11-16 with the Komodo as well.
Okay.
Yes. And, you know, I'll put it out there, you know, this was COVID conditions and we didn't want a lot of people on set. Even when the girls came, they weren't all, you know, next to each other. So when we filmed that, you know, we didn't really have anybody on set. And because I was using an 11-16, that lens is so wide, I guess you could tell a lot more that there was like, that the set was like pretty empty. Yeah. And Alec came to me, he's like, dude, you're shooting in 6K. You just crop that baby in. I'm like, you're right, I can. So I cropped like I would say equivalent to 5K. And so yes, this test basically had 3 different lenses for it. I do really like how the Tokina works with the Komodo. I'm actually using the Tokina right now. I actually really like it more on the Micro Four Thirds lenses, or Micro Four Thirds cameras. Yeah. But I mean, it worked pretty decent. I actually think I'm probably going to use, since it has autofocus now working, which is something I'll go over in a second, the 18-35 for gimbal use more than the 11-16, just because of how wide the 11-16 is. True. So that's the next thing. So not Blackmagic, Red came out with an update a few weeks ago now at this point. It came out like right when I got back from this trip. Yeah. And it was like one of the subtle things they had in it was that continuous autofocus was now working with the Sigma 18-35. So it wasn't working for this shoot, which I was like the whole time. Jared was like, I'm going to come out with the update Thursday. I'm like, sweet, because I get there Thursday. And then the next update's like, it's going to come out next week. And I'm like, not sweet, but all right. I was already planning on not using it.
So yes, I focus on this shoot here.
Yeah, I was using a Tilta nucleus. I didn't have to use it all the time. Some of the times I just had it out and I didn't even plug it in because I didn't need it, but I had it there in case I needed it. But it's good to know that, you know, now that the autofocus, and it's still in beta, you know, we have to keep using that disclaimer, but you know, it works with the Sigma 18-35 and it works pretty well. There was only one day where I had some issues where it pretty much just wasn't working at all. And I could tell just something was up. And once I switched resolutions, I was at 6K and then I went to 2K, which I guess I didn't realize that autofocus is disabled at 2K, or maybe it's disabled at 2K when you're shooting at 120 frames. But I went to 2K and then went back to 6K, and like I did the hand test, you know, I just put your hand, remove your hand, put your hand, remove your hand. And it worked. It worked again, whereas it wasn't working. And that was the only time I've actually had a problem with it. You know, the 3 other shoots I've done since I got back from Atlanta, where I've just tested the 18-35, were great. And it's pretty snappy too. You know, there's not really much, you know, focusing around and like trying to like kind of get your hand, but like moving and there's not a lot of hunting, which is really cool. And it's also not very loud, you know, like I could hear it sometimes on the lens where it's like, you hear like the click, 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 but you don't, I mean, I didn't hear it in camera. I had a Rode Micro on top just to get reference, and I didn't hear it, and you don't see it. I think that's the most important part. You don't see it in the footage. Slow exactly. Exactly. And that's what I really like about it. So you know, if you're filming action scenes,
is it only a default setting where you can change? Is there a setting where you can change the speed of it, or
no, not right now.
Okay,
And on top of that, it's not like it's a Canon camera or a Sony camera where it has like special features to track your face or whatnot. The way it works on the Red is there's points. I would say there's like, I'm going to say there's 9 points. I'm probably going to be proven wrong, but I would say there's like 9 points on the camera, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. And you can choose which one you want to be your like focusing point. And when it's green, it's locking on. When it's yellow, it means it needs to lock on. And when it's red, it basically means, it can't lock on or whatever. Something's wrong. But so if you're within that square, and you can change the size of the square too, so you can make it really small up to making it like maybe like a fifth of the screen size as far as the total area. So you can make it pretty big, but the rules are you have to stay within those markers. And if you do, works pretty well. As long as you're using a lens that it works with, because since it's in beta, it's not working with all lenses. So far, it worked with the 50. It worked with the Sigma now. I didn't even check to see if it worked with the Tokina. To be fair, I should have. It's just that this thing is so wide, pretty much you're close focus or infinity.
Basically.
But for a Red camera, it was pretty decent. It's nice to have it. Would I use it on a narrative film? Not really. If you're shooting a documentary, would I use it? Yeah, I probably would use it. If you're shooting action sports or cars, probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't rely on it. But anything that's slow and chill, I wouldn't hesitate to use it, especially because it's so smooth and it's it's not jerky and there's not a lot of hunting, at least with the lenses I've used.
I hear you. So, I haven't embraced autofocusing yet at all.
This was my first time. I kind of was like,
I see the benefits of it though. I see the benefits. Like for instance, if you had someone who was pretty active, moving back and forth, interview, like having a camera to track that, I think that would be pretty beneficial. Like you can tap to track or something like that. But, I see someone has a question.
Yeah, I just was looking at that. So Greg's writing, have you had any surprises while using the Komodo? Okay, so I did go over that one surprise with the autofocus where it wasn't working that one day. I had one other issue that I saw Cole Walliser was having it actually on one of his Instagram stories. So I wrote him about it, and he said he's actually had it twice too, or maybe 3 times. But so when I was in 2K and at 120 frames, I'm filming all of a sudden, and I've been using the phone, which I'll get to that in a second, but I'm using the phone as the monitor. All of a sudden I just see the image. It's like, the old VHS image where like it just keeps rolling up. I see that start happening, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good, because it's happening on the Komodo and it's happening on the phone monitor. So I'm like, that's like maybe a sensor thing. I was like freaking out a little bit. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? So I turned it off. I turned it on. It was still doing like the rolling sensor thing. Then when I moved it to 6K, booted down the camera, booted it back up, and it was on 6K, went away. Then I went back to 2K because I'm like, all right, I'm going to make sure this isn't replicable. So I went back to 2K. I tried it. It didn't happen again. Went back to 6K, didn't happen again. So it was just one of those freak things. And then when I saw Cole posted on one of his stories, I saw his screen, and his screen was doing that. So I wrote him, I'm like, dude, it was this issue? And he's like, yeah, it was, but it's only happened a few times, but like it has happened. I'm like, all right, well, if it's happening to you and it's happening to me, at least it wasn't like a broken camera thing. It was one of those kinks in the system. And, you can knock it to saying that's why the camera's in beta. There's stuff like that. If he's having it and I'm having it, I'm sure someone else has had it. I'm sure it's something that's on their list that they're going to fix, but I don't know what caused it. I'm sure if I had it again, they have this log system where you can export a log that has all the information from the camera, and you just send it off to them, and it's like a text file. And so that's how they work off of problems. Exactly. That's how they go through and see what the issues are. And I think that's also probably part of the reason why they have the notifications of like the unapproved media and batteries. Like if you put a battery in that's not the Canon battery, every time you get a warning, it pops up that it's on an unapproved battery. Anytime you put in media that's not basically the Angel Bird cards that are approved, the Sony cards that are approved. I'm trying to remember. It's Angel Bird, Sony, and there's like 2 other companies. SanDisk has some cards approved, and there's one other company. And it's basically, if it's not any of those, it'll say unapproved. And I think that's part of the reason why too, because I'm sure if you output a log, it'll say in the log, like, because it reads the card. It, like, if you look into the file, it says like your card is a Sony 128 gigabyte card. Or if it's unapproved, like for instance, I do use unapproved media sometimes. Again, be careful if you use unapproved media. But I use this SSD to CFast 2.0 card adapter. Just because I have 3 SSDs, so it's like it saved me a few thousand on 512 SSDs. And what's interesting is, and I didn't think it would do this, it actually tells you what SSD you're using in the camera now.
Oh wow!
So it's like I'm using a Samsung 512. It reads it as a Samsung 512 SSD. So through the adapter, it knows what the card is, exactly what the card is. And I thought that was part of the reason why they weren't approving these, because I thought maybe they couldn't see like what the brand is that you're putting in the adapter, but you can. So what's interesting is maybe at some point they'll maybe approve, and I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm just spitballing here, but I'm thinking maybe they'll approve some of these, or maybe one SSD to CFast adapter, and then they'll approve certain cards that can work in that SSD adapter. And I think that's probably the hard part right now with dealing with it, because look, for SSDs, whether you get eSATA or the thin ones or the thick ones that you put in your computer, you know, there's so many different ones. It's like, how are they going to verify all of them? Who knows? Maybe they won't, just because there's so many options. But
yeah, there's a ton of options. I guess
it's interesting.
Itself,
and even me, like, you know, I have, so out of my 3 SSDs, one of my 512 works flawlessly in all frame rates, all resolutions, all compressions. One that I have that is another 512 from SanDisk, but is a newer card, actually does not work with all frame rates, compressions. It'll work in 6K, but it'll only work in 6K and LQ, which is the lowest quality. And same with the 256 I have.
Okay.
But you know, they're essentially emergency cards for me at this point. And then the 512 I have works. So it's so that's basically, that's the whole reason why I think they have issues approving them. And Greg's asking another question: any favorite Komodo accessories that I'm waiting for? Well, I'd say the main thing is a cage. So right now, so see, this is what I did. I wanted the SMALLRIG one because I've really liked their cages, but I don't know when their cage is coming out. I think they literally just got a Komodo like this week. So they're probably like still, you know, a bit away from getting their cage out. But I wanted the SMALLRIG, and then I was like, you know what, I'll settle for the Tilta. And one of the things I noticed is all of these cages that are coming out, including the 8-sin cage, they're basically not like the cages we have for our Pocket, where you can get them in like one huge thing and you just mount your camera in. They're like in pieces. And so what I did, and I actually ordered it yesterday and it comes in tomorrow, is I've decided to basically piecemeal a cage together, because I've been using this cage that actually perfectly fits the Komodo. And you know, people thought it was made for the Komodo because it literally form fits over it. But the reason I don't want to use it anymore is when I'm switching from a gimbal setup to a tripod setup to a shoulder rig setup, using that cage, to the way you screw it in, it's just a pain and it takes a while on set. So what Red did through GDU is they have these side mounting pieces called Timmy. And I kind of poo-pooed them in the beginning. I was just like, nah, they're okay. They're okay. But I'm like, I have a cage, you know, I'm just going to use my cage. But the thing with the Timmy ribs is, because they're these small little pieces that actually screw into pre-placed holes on your camera, they save you on space. So you don't have to have extra space where you don't need it. They save you on weight, because since you aren't taking up that space, you're also not taking up that weight. So I ordered 2 Timmy ribs that were the white ones, so they match the camera.
Mhm.
They did a limited run on some white ones just for anybody who happened to want it. And
That's cool.
to be fair, it wasn't even that I wanted the white ones. I just needed them because
Yeah.
I want to be able to put the camera on the gimbal and then take it
Very
off real
quickly.
quick and not
Yeah.
have to like put a cage on at that point. You know, I want to put it
Yeah.
on with the cage.
Yeah.
So,
That makes
so I
sense.
got the two Timmy ribs. The other thing I did, which is something that Scott Balcom has been doing and a lot of the other users were doing, they basically have a NATO rail that goes along the top that just screws into the 2/4 inches on the top. And so that's what I ordered. I ordered a NATO rail and then a NATO rail handle.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, when I'm going from gimbal mode
You
to,
just pop it off.
you know, literally, I'll take the NATO rail, the handle off,
Yep.
pop the camera on the gimbal, take it off, and I don't have to go unmount a bunch of stuff. And so that's the benefit of the Timmy ribs that I didn't really think about when they first came out. Which is why I just went and ordered them, because I'm like, you know what, they're not that expensive. Let me just grab them. And then they also have all the mounting ports.
Yeah,
so
there's another company out in Australia, because I watched this. Oh man, what's his name? Dan. He's been having had the series on his Komodo, rigging it up to a car and doing all types of gimbal stuff. It's really good content. But he has a case called the Keystone.
Yes,
And
I've seen that.
Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting, because it does give the camera a little bit more girth in terms of, because it's the outer ring. The camera kind of sits in there, and then
it was interesting.
Yeah. If I were ever to get that down the road or use it, I would probably go that route, because having a little bit more, because the Komodo is about the same size as a ZCam, right?
It's a little bigger.
A little bigger.
I think it's a little big, but not much.
Yeah,
it's literally barely bigger.
And something about that, because like I have an 8-cent cage, and having all those 1/4-20s is nice, but everything's so close together because it's the camera.
Yeah, and how often are you going to use every single like it's 1/4-20 that they put in? I get why. Like, what else are they going to do? And now that I think about it, now that I say it though, by them putting in all those 1/4-20s, it may actually reduce the weight of those cages.
It would, and also like the heating up of the camera too. It still helps disperse that heat, right? So, but the only time it gets really kind of tight is when I'm rigging this up for kind of like if I'm following a subject for a documentary. That's because I have audio, I have my freaking H6 attached to it, and I have a mic, and then I have my monitor. So like it gets really kind of crammed after a while with that smaller body. But it's something I just noticed.
Yeah, I've seen that cage and I do like it. I think the two things I thought is it's a little pricey, but I mean, all Red accessories, honestly, at this point are pretty pricey. But it's solid. It's big. It's solid. I think, you know, it's steel milled or something like that. It's really well made. I saw Tim Dowse shared some pictures. I think he had an orange one and another one that they sent to him to test, and it looked really solid. And I was considering it, especially when I got to that point where I'm like, I'm not using this cage that really isn't meant for this camera anymore.
Right.
But yes, so because of how big it was, that was really the thing that stopped me from getting it, because it was available. I can go grab it right now, but it was just a little big. It was a little big. But some people may want it that way. So exactly. if you like that, then that may be the cage for you.
Sorry for all that noise. I was trying to grab my camera.
Oh yeah, dude, no worries.
Like I said, it's a mess in here right
playing
now.
with the camera. Have you messed with the webcam settings yet to use it as a webcam?
I tried. I couldn't get it to, because I had to use OBS from what I know, I had to use OBS. And I just couldn't figure out how to get it to read the camera as the webcam. So I need to go back and dive into it. I haven't done much content online because I've just been swamped in pre-production, post-production right now. So I think once I have a little more things off my plate, I'll kind of dive back in and get to a regular schedule of like making content. But I do want to use it because it's nice. It's nice having this camera, and I can just put on like a small hi-hat on my desk right here, and it's like boom, ready to go. Right. So either I might just pick up a E2, like the older one, just to have as a webcam, and then just mount it up here and be done with it. Because that's great, and I can just control everything from the software on the computer or on the phone.
That's true.
So, yeah, so that'd be kind of nice to do.
Yeah, you're gonna laugh. I use an old trusty Panasonic G7 for my
it looks
webcam.
Great. it looks great. Like
Yeah,
your
it's
quality
decent
looks
for
really
what it
great.
is. You know,
Mhm.
if you're recording like 8-bit 4K video that doesn't need slow
Yeah,
mo, and
yeah,
you don't need all that color information. This is a natural color profile. It does the job, but I mean, it doesn't have the inputs like the ZCam does. So that's why
yeah.
sometimes, depending on what I'm filming or what I'm live streaming, I'll have to
Mhm.
pop up the Pocket 4K so I can
Got
get the XLRs, or I got to get an XLR, one of those Zoom recorders, and hook it directly into
Yeah.
this.
One thing I haven't tested yet though is the internal audio using a mini
Really?
XLR here. I haven't. 'Cause I read somewhere like it's the preamps are just not great in this camera. I
Mm-hmm,
need to test
mm-hmm.
it myself, see what it sounds like. Because like I said, I just run everything off my H6, so I just use whatever the
Yeah,
internal mic picks up as my
and that's pretty
scratch. So
solid.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually something I forgot to add. So when we did the test, I did allude to that I only ran sound, but for a very minute period of time. And I
Mm-hmm.
ran sound during those red alert segments
Okay.
directly into the camera. And I used a Comica Boom XD, which is basically it's like a Rode Video Micro.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, no, not Rode Video Micro, a Rode Wireless Go.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Wow. Okay.
and yeah, it's like the Wireless Go, but the reason I like them is because it's 2 transmitters to 1 receiver, even though I didn't
Mm-hmm.
use the 2 transmitters on that shoot. But so what we did was we actually used a one of those Comicas, put it on a monopod, and just boomed it over them. And we had a nice little handy boom mic, and the
Yeah.
microphone on those little Comicas are surprisingly good. The
Are they?
internal one,
Okay.
yeah, much better than the Rode.
Huh.
Their excuse me, their labs definitely not as good as the Rode.
Yeah.
But so if you're gonna get a Comica Boom XD, I would, even though their labs like lock into it, I would probably get different labs. But as far as the built-in microphone, highly recommend it. Like I was, so even in my video, I'm like, you listen to me, and I have like the Comica here, and then I have the Comica with the lav here, and I'm like testing 1 2, testing 1 2, and it's like you could tell the crispness of the built-in one is it's just night and day, night and day. I couldn't believe how well. And that probably makes sense why Rode charges extra for the labs, and
Yeah.
Comica doesn't. They include
Yeah.
them. And the
Yeah.
Comica's more expensive, but not by much. So the labs can't be that expensive.
Got you. Oh, it's good to know. I need to
But
check that out.
but the so it did work. I had the gain up to 12,
Uh-huh.
and I did have to push the gain in post a little bit. I think I had to push it 5 decibels,
Mhm.
but it was good. There wasn't a lot of noise, and to be fair, in that shot, there was so much other audio going on. If there was any noise, it would have been covered. Just being real. But I didn't really hear much noise. When I did my tests, I noticed if I pushed it much past 5 decibels using the Comica, then you did start to hear noise, which is part of the reason I kept it at 5.
Got you.
So it's like the preamps in the Komodo, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, they're amazing, but they're not bad. They're just, they're okay. They're all right.
Okay. It's somewhat like the Pocket, because I thought the Pocket preamps were that bad either.
I think the Pocket's better.
Yeah,
okay. I would say
okay,
the Pocket's probably better for preamps, especially with the ability to, because it can fan and power XLR microphones. And that's really why I would put it above the Komodo as far as audio levels. Even the 4K, the 4K and the 6K, they're in the same zone when it comes to audio. So I would put it up there just because of the XLR and the phantom power. Again, I wouldn't say that they're like leaps and bounds better, but at the same time, yeah, it's especially going through the 3.5 millimeter, it's not much better than the Komodo. If going through the 3.5 millimeter is better at all than the Komodo, I just know the XLR is decent on the 4K and the 6K.
Gotcha.
So
gotcha. Cool.
So cool. We're hitting up 58 minutes. I think it's a good spot to end. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. Josh, where can everyone find you? Social media handles and whatnot on the Instagrams, Facebooks, whatnot.
Sure. So my personal account is Joshua Martin Studios. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube with the same handle. I am on Twitter. It is Joshua M Studios at Twitter or on Twitter, however you want to say that. And then if you want to follow
Mhm.
like Rig Culture and some of the things that we're doing, is at Rig Culture on Instagram, and Rig Culture is the website is www.rigculture.com. And I point people to that mainly because, one, we are trying to connect with different brands to get discounts and deals. So there's a discount and deals page that if you guys are trying to rent something or purchase something, we're going to hopefully have something there for you all. So like 5%, 10%, 15%. It just helps
Awesome.
out the community a little bit. So, because, our line of work is pretty expensive. So having a discount somewhere does help a little bit. But definitely check that out. And and lens test, gear test. That's what we try to do on that platform as well.
Very cool. Well, dude, I can't wait to see the winner of your contest this weekend.
Yeah,
That's going
I
to be
can't wait to
interesting.
share. Yeah, for sure.
And guys, for those who are watching this and listening to the show after it's already aired, if you have any questions that I didn't go over about the test, because I'm sure there's a bunch of questions that I didn't go over, feel free to put them in the comments of this video, and I'll write back to them or answer them maybe in a follow-up video or live stream. So Josh, dude, thank you so much again for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Me. Yeah, for sure, man. It's good talking to you.
Absolutely, man. And thank you again to everybody, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Adios, guys.
Peace.